Everybody, welcome to Out of Control with Mel. Today, I have a guest, Miss Faith C. Echo, and I met her on Twitter. She reached out to because, as we know, the show focuses on coercive control, and Faith is a bit of an expert in narcissistic abuse. And as we know, the two go hand in hand. Welcome, Faith. Thank you so much.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me here. It's a pleasure. I always love when people, give me the platform to share my story and get my message out there. So thank you so much.
It's great of you to share your story because obviously it helps people to feel less alone. So many people, myself included, put up with the weirdest things. And it's not till someone like you tells your story where you're and gets to the other side and everything where you're like, oh my gosh, okay, what am I doing? And you can start to look for patterns of behavior, whatever. I also want to say Faith is going to go ahead and introduce herself, but I want to let everybody know that she has this amazing book and that tells her story, and it's really, really good. She is a great writer, and it's a fun read and very relatable. I'm not a fun read, but it's a relatable read. I'm sorry, I should not be saying fun, but
So
you
I
are
understand.
very relatable.
Thank you. Thank you.
Fabulous.
I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I'm also a recovery coach for anybody who's been in narcissistic relationships and has like post trauma after it. And yeah, for the longest time, I could not even talk about this, much less without completely bawling. But now it's like I can't shut up about it. Like I just really, really like it's my calling to share the horribleness I went through for 4 years with a malignant narcissist. And like you said, to let people know they are not alone, they are not crazy. And if I can share my story and let people know there is hope, and more than that, there's healing and thriving after all of the abuse, it is possible.
Yeah, that's wonderful. How long ago was all of this that took place in your book?
So I got out 2 years ago from this relationship. I literally escaped at 3 in the morning with my 3-year-old son.
Wait, oh my gosh, I don't want to interrupt you, which I will 1,000 times. Not that I'm
That's
trying to be
fine.
rude, but oh my God, 2 years ago.
2 years
Okay, I
ago.
thought you were going to say like 15 years ago. Oh my God.
No, it's still pretty fresh.
Wow. Okay. I'm so sorry. Continue.
So yeah, I had to escape because with people with narcissism, I feel like that's the only way to get out. And I was able to get a restraining order till we figured out the court thing because we do share a son together. And it was actually 2 years ago that I started writing my book because I just need people to know. I think the term narcissist is thrown around like way too casually, which drives me nuts. It's almost like it's become a buzzword. And so has gaslighting become a buzzword. And coercive control is what I definitely want to get out there because a lot of people think that abuse is only physical. And in my opinion, so coercive control is emotional, mental, psychological abuse. And to me, that's more damaging because physical, don't get me wrong, is horrible, but bones mend and bruises go away. But some of the abuse that we've gone through, like the words that have been spoken and the degrading and dehumanizing, like that stays with us. Those are
Yeah.
scars that nobody else sees, but we definitely carry them on the inside.
There's also something I remember in one of my psychology classes about the way the brain stores the audio of verbal abuse there, and you can replay it over and over and over. And just like dreams and memories, how you can feel it, it's like you
Mhm.
relive it over and over and over. Whereas, like you said, if you're getting beat, you're not actually, and again, not to minimize any, I always have to make that clear. What we're talking about is this is on top of that, which is
Mhm.
horrible, but that you can replay it over and over and it can feel the same as the first time every time. Whereas a punch, you're just getting punched the one time and you might relive all of the trauma of that, but not the actual physical pain of the punch.
Exactly.
But there's something particular with the brain and the way it stores that makes it particularly awful.
Well, like Bessel van der Kolk, like in his book, The Body Keeps the Score, like our body does hold on to trauma. And that's why it's so important to really process our feelings, like go to those dark, ugly places, even though it sucks and hurts like hell. But that's the only way to release it and start to heal, because we cannot outrun our feelings. Like they just come back tenfold. And eventually, like trauma literally changes the neurons in your brain. But since our brains are so malleable, through healing, we can sort of get the neurons to fire again in the right direction. And by talking about all of this, it sort of starts to desensitize our experience so that we know it's something that happened to us. It does not define who we are. And it hopefully is no longer like a present threat.
Yeah, I'm just sitting here thinking about how strong you are. And then 2 years, I still can't get over. Do you find, I'm finding as I'm getting older that more and more memories are coming back, not necessarily bad memories, but just memories in general. Do you find that that's like a thing as people get older?
Definitely. I think as we get older, maybe we start to not analyze, but like pay attention to where we are and maybe like check in with ourselves to be like, am I happy? Am I living my authentic life? So, absolutely. I think it brings up a lot of things from the past, especially childhood, for
It's
sure.
so weird. It's like flooding. And like
Yeah.
more, and I'm just like, oh my God, that's so weird. I haven't literally thought of that in 40 years or whatever.
Hmm.
It's crazy. So talking about how, the body remembers and the brain remembers, and you can't get away from it. It's gonna come up and resurface, good or bad.
Absolutely. Exactly. It is. So, like, even now, when I smell like apple scented candles, I couldn't figure out why it like made me go into like a panic. And I think a lot of the bad memories that happened with my ex was like around the fall. So like subconsciously I smell apple candles and I just start to like get really tense, and it's crazy. It's crazy, but yeah, the body remembers sounds and smells and sights, and it's nuts.
Yeah, and it can take you right back there. So okay, so that ended 2 years ago, and you wrote your book, which is
Mhm.
fantastic.
Thank you.
And you were with Damien, right? How long were you with him for?
I was with him for 4 years.
For 4 years. And so prior to that, what was your knowledge or experience of narcissism or abuse or anything like that?
So the crazy thing is I'm a social worker. And I feel like I just skipped through the chapter in the DSM about narcissism because and I'm sure like other people think it was like just an arrogant man or woman, conceited, huge egos. And I had no idea how much darker it is and how manipulating they are and how they have always agendas based on their needs, and they're pathological liars. They have zero empathy, like no remorse, like sociopaths. So the first couple of years of my relationship were like fantastic because, they do the love bombing and
How do they stick with it for so long? That's what it's like, holy wow, long game. I mean, con artists do this as well. And con artists are usually, I think, narcissistic psychopaths, or sociopaths, but what a long, long game. How do
it's
you think they
insane.
sustain that when it's so against their or it's not, it comes natural to them, right? To do all of this?
It totally comes natural to them. I don't even think they know they're doing it. That's how
Right.
sick it is. So they wear the mask and they totally morph into they want people what they want others to see them as. So like
Right.
they mirror back other people's personalities and likes and dislikes, and like I was put on a pedestal, and then on it just started very slowly to change, and I couldn't figure out why this man who used to love me and be like my best friend all of a sudden turned into like my enemy. And I thought I was going crazy because I was told multiple times that I was imagining things, that I was having a mental breakdown. And then I started Googling stuff like this, and I was Googling it on my phone, and every single symptom of NPD was him to a T. And I
Wow.
like threw my phone because I was like, oh my God, this cannot be happening. And then slowly I started to accept that he was one. And it was sort of liberating to know that there's actual label to it,
Yeah.
like that other people have gone through it, other people were able to get out. It was not me after all. And then I would start listening to podcasts, and I swore they were telling my exact story. So it was brutal for me to accept the man that I love never, ever, ever existed. Like that was a very hard takeaway. And I was like, how did I not know? And that's why I want people to really know what this disease is, what it entails, and that it's not healthy. And the only way to survive it is to get out of it.
Yeah. The gaslighting thing, and you were saying narcissism being thrown around and gaslighting. One thing that people, you pointed it out, they have no empathy. And so when people are throwing around narcissism, they're often, talking about someone that has narcissistic traits. I have some narcissistic traits, but I have a lot of empathy. And goodness, it's like I don't think anybody
Yeah.
asks to have narcissistic personality disorder, but yeah, if people have empathy, just like throw that out. They're not like they have traits. We all have traits of different things. And the gaslighting, I just because you mentioned it and people throwing that around, I just have to point it out. So everybody, gaslighting is from a movie. There are several
Mhm.
versions. It's from
Mhm.
that movie. The term didn't come first and then the movie. So if you don't watch the movie, you don't really, really quite understand what it means. Please watch the movie. That's just like my PSA for gaslighting. Please watch the movie Gaslight before you use the term.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you.
Because it's different than just lying. Everyone seems to think it's like lying is gaslight. No, it is not. It is something else. It is making you
It,
question your own reality.
yep. So, for example, like if I had my cell phone and I'd leave it in one room and I would come back and it would be gone. So I would ask him, I'm like, have you seen my cell phone? He's like, no. So I'd look through the whole house and I'd come back and there my cell phone was where I originally left it. And he would just look at me and be like, man, you're really losing it. Like you're becoming mentally unhinged. And so for the longest time, I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm losing it. And then one day was being so cold to me. And I'm like, what happened? And he's like, earlier in the day, you pushed me and told me to get out of the way. I was like, oh my gosh. Like I literally thought I was losing my mind because I knew for a fact, like I hadn't even seen him earlier in the day, you know? So gaslight, yeah, makes you feel like you're going crazy.
I would I would be so susceptible. I mean, I am susceptible to that. If you tell, I'm like, my memory is shit, first of all, and it's kind of always been shit.
Yeah.
So I could pretty easily be convinced that I did something and not remember. I mean, I can't like as people know if they watch my other show, I often don't remember what I'm saying halfway through a sentence. Like you could tell me I did something. That's so evil.
Yeah. Evil. That's who these entities are. I sometimes don't even feel like they're human. They're just evil.
Yeah,
E-
getting people to question their reality. And I'm sure you were thinking, what's wrong with me? What is wrong with me? First of all, I'm doing things I don't remember, misplacing things, but also he's treating me different and I don't know what I did. Obviously, I did something because
Mhm.
everything was fine before. right?
exactly. And then it would switch like Jekyll and Hyde. Like then all of a sudden he'd start the love bombing again and presents and I love you and you're my person and let's go look at wedding rings. And then just like that, he'd be like, you're not wife material. Like in real life, if we didn't share a son, like we wouldn't even be friends. And was like, well, he's right about something. This is not real life. It's just awful. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. I didn't set out for this experience. You know, I didn't grow up and be like, oh, when I grow up, I want to be abused. But it happened. So I'm taking it as it's now my calling to help other people who are going through it by sharing my experience. And at least I had to go through it in order to be able to help people because of my experience.
Yeah, and you came out stronger on the other side so that you can do that. What do you think about online bullying? For instance, I'm going to get real specific. I wasn't actually going to ask you this while we were recording, but I'm going to because this could be helpful for a lot of people because it does seem I see it every day and it's not just with the co-host of my other show, but the co-host of my other show is the target of a smear campaign and just absolute it's been narcissistic abuse. Online. And because we have the show, and not just because of like, she shouldn't have to hide, because this person is like following her around and making up lies and blasting posts that are psychotic and unreal or whatever. But like, what would you say about that? Someone being targeted online because they don't stop ever. Like you said, you have
No,
to leave. So what happens then?
that's terrible. And that's a huge symptom of narcissism is the smear campaign because they want others to think that we are at fault and they were the victims. And but that's a tough one. I have not
Mhm.
experienced that on social media, but I can only imagine how devastating it is. Now, is she able to block him?
Yeah, but there's flying monkeys involved, sock accounts being created one after the other. We get one shut down because we all report it. If we're on that day and she can gather enough people to say, help me, it's constant. And then they just keep popping up and keep popping. It's like this person's full-time job.
That is terrible. I am
Yeah.
so sorry she's
And
going.
people don't know what's going on because they're not staring at Twitter all day. They don't remember how it started. They don't know how it started. They're hearing different, like, thank gosh, I've seen everything, so I know to stand by her, but I didn't know that in the beginning. I didn't know what was going on. And then I found out and I was like, oh my God, okay, this is fucking crazy.
Oh, that sucks. Yeah. Yeah. I have not been in that one, but I would just say, because with narcissists, you have to go no contact. Like you have to block them on social media, on your phone, everything. However, if you share children together, obviously you have to be in contact. Um, so I do parallel parenting, which is different than co-parenting because co-parents can like come together for events or like doctor's appointments and they get along. And with parallel parenting, excuse me, you like I have a web an app
Mhm.
that's the only way we communicate because everything needs to be documented. So all of our conversations are strictly about our son. I respond with yes, no answers. I just give the bare minimum information because I'm not going to get sucked back in to a fight or manipulation or any of that. And these messages cannot be edited or deleted. And they're viewed by judges and lawyers. And it's just important to have modified contact. And we don't go to events together or doctor's appointments together, or it's just very, very toxic. And I don't want my son to pick up on it
Yeah.
because when we were together, my son developed a stutter um, because of the tension that was going on. So he doesn't need to be a part of it anymore. So no contact is pretty much the only way because then they will come back also and try to hoover you back into the relationship and like the vacuum, they suck you back in and then they discard you again. They throw you away when you're no longer of use for them and it's just a cycle and it's it's hard to heal if you keep poking the wound too, you know?
Yeah. There's a lot of people that should be using that app and that method of not co-parent, parenting. How
Mm.
long has that been around? I imagine for a while.
I would assume so. I didn't know about it again.
Hmm.
So yeah, because I have a son from my first husband, and he and I always co-parented. Like we could do holidays together, and with this guy, there's no way. So I started Googling again. Google has been my savior. And I saw about parallel parenting, and I was like, this is definitely going to be the way to go.
Yeah, I know someone that could use that. Unfortunately, I think both of them might be narcissists, but I only hear one side of the story, so I think that she should be using the app. Tell me how, tell me about the getting out and getting the restraining order. Tell me about that period, like where did you finally find, you know, the moment, like I had, like they call it on a little bit culty when the shelf breaks. It's just like the last thing. It's one too many things.
Well, it started happening and it was very slow, like death by paper cuts. And it started with the emotional abuse. And then I later found out that he had hidden recorders all over the house. He put a GPS tracker on my car. He was reading my emails, my texts, like he knew where I was at all times, and I could sense it. And he would like eerily say something like so that I knew I was being recorded. And then he'd be like, "What are you talking about?" Um, we got into an argument once and he went to punch me, and I was able to duck in time. And I locked myself in the bathroom and I tried to call somebody, and he had shut off my cell service. And then another time we got into an argument and I went to get my car keys and he had hidden them. One time he took out the starter from my car so I couldn't leave. And then one time he was like, just be careful with what you drink. And I was like, why? He's like, because at any minute I can put in eye drops. And I had no idea what that meant. And like a week later, I was watching Dateline, and the woman ended up killing her husband by putting eye drops in his drink.
Okay, I remember reading that in your book, and I have to say, I'm like, oh my God. Okay, first of all, I bartended for 1,000 years, and it was a rumor, and I think there's probably a rumor in high school too, uh, that if you put Visine in a drink, you'll give someone diarrhea.
Mhm.
I thank God I never tried it, and none of us bartend, because customers sometimes you do some shit to their drink. Yeah, it happens, people. Thank God we never did that. What if we accidentally fucking killed somebody based on like
Yeah.
internet lore? Oh my God.
Imagine.
My dog. Hey, no, Petunia. I'm sorry. Go get that. Sorry.
Sorry, I have my dog cuddled in a blanket by the heater so he doesn't bark.
So cute. I don't know what she thinks. She knows the drill when the lights are on, and I'm like, come on, man, get out of here. But yeah, oh my God, that's terrifying.
Yes.
And how does
And
he even know that, by the way?
thank you. I always wondered, I'm like, what kind of a sick person knows that and then actually considers it to, yeah, that blew my mind. So all of these things were happening more and more and more. And the final straw was one night I was in bed and he threw a fit. I don't even know why, and threw me out of the bedroom. So I went upstairs to the spare bedroom and I locked the door. He came up and was knocking, and I was saying, please leave me alone. He found a way to get in the bedroom. And he said, just to give you a heads up, I'm taking our son tomorrow. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, I'm taking him away from you. You're mentally not fit to be a mother. So I'm just letting you know. And as soon as he closed the door, I called my girlfriend and I was like, that's it. Like, I need to get out of here because you're not going to threaten me with my kid to take my kid away. Like, that was it.
Yeah.
So she didn't even question it. She's like, because she knew everything I had gone through. So I told her to drive up in my driveway with her headlights off. And I sat waiting by the window. And as soon as she pulled up, I just grabbed my son and we ran like hell. And the next day I went to the courthouse and got a restraining order, which is amazing because I'm not sure if you're familiar with Jennifer's Law.
I bet that I've heard of it because I watch every single like documentary or show or everything about any of this, but remind me what it is, and also for the listeners.
So Jennifer Dulos was a
Yes.
mother of five. Yep.
I just rewatched something like a
Yes.
couple days ago. Yes.
Yep. So she kept going to the police and she was like, my husband is mentally abusing me. And she's like, I know that he's going to do something to me if I ask for a divorce. So she escaped. When he wasn't home, she took her five kids and she went missing. And this was a couple years ago. And it just came out now that he did, in fact, kill her.
Yeah.
They've never found her body. And then there was another woman, Jennifer Magnano, who was forced to testify against her abusive husband in court. And right afterwards, he shot and killed her in front of their small children. So, because of these situations, they enacted a law called Jennifer's Law, where people are now able to get restraining orders, even if the violence was not physical, which to me is
Right.
huge and amazing.
Yes. Because what a lot of people don't know, but when you learn about these cluster bees, the everything accelerates. So
Mhm.
like, I once had my apartment attempted to be broken into while I was in it. It was
Oh, God.
terrifying and horrible, right? And I was super like, I had to move out of there. My dad had to come fly out here and stay with me for 3 weeks because I didn't know, was I being stalked? Who is this person? Why? Like, what's going on, right? I don't know. Am I being followed? Um, and I was in therapy at the time, and my idiot therapist at the time told me that peeping toms were harmless.
Oh, my God.
No, they are not. It
No.
all accelerates. Paraphilias accelerate. Your criminals, everything accelerates if not stopped. And every serial killer will say, I wasn't going to stop until someone stopped me. It's just, and again, they start with peeping, and then they'll start maybe breaking in, maybe they'll molest, maybe they'll rob, and then maybe they'll rape, and then that's not enough anymore because these are all chemical, just looking for a chemical response in the brain. And then as we know with everything, we get hedonic adaptation, the brain chemicals stop, being supplied, and you have to elevate, 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 escalate, escalate, escalate the behavior, and then we end up with murder.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's
So
horrifying.
people, especially like, you're here thinking this guy's love bombing you. He's great. You've got all this wonderful experiences with this man. You would never dream in 1,000 billion years he would murder someone. Now he hasn't, let's just for the record, but he knew how he could and threatened you with it.
Yeah.
Again, that is an acceleration of behavior. And it might also be like, hey, someone stop me. I'm getting a little out of control. So I'm going to say it, you know?
Yeah, it's horrifying. And to think that I like shared a bed with this man and shared a home with him and a life. And yeah, it
That's
was
the other thing. I talked about this with Aldo. It's the mind fuck of what now you're not responsible for this, obviously, because this abuse is there's a whole methodology and it's the same every time and all of this, and it works. It works. So it's not your fault, but you feel like, oh my God, I fucking did this to myself
yeah,
because of the manipulation. So there's a second betrayal because
yeah,
you ignore signs and signals and flags.
absolutely. And then you start to lose trust in yourself because you're like, why didn't I see this? Why did I stay? Why did my sons witness what they did? I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
and people do wonder why we stay. And it's not that simple to get out. There's so many factors. Like women think, how am I going to pay the bills? Or I don't want my kids to be in a broken home, which is the absolute worst reason to stay. Like, if anything, you need to get out because of the children, because they don't need to witness any of this like during the foundation of their lives. They're building stuff, their brains developing, and they just absolutely get out for the children.
Yeah.
um women are terrified too, because I read somewhere they're 7 times more likely to be murdered when they get out. Like the post breakup period is the most dangerous period.
Right.
And I
Yep.
heard financial reasons too, and is like the number one reason they stay. And then it takes a bunch of attempts. You leave and then you come back. And then you leave before you finally leave for good. And it's complicated. It's complicated to explain to people because a lot of people think, well, if they stay, they have it coming, or they must like it, or it's their fault.
No. There's so
Or
much wrapped into it, and a lot of it is the self-worth. And over time, that's eroded. That's what
yeah,
people have to understand. You may have started, a normal person with self-esteem that can spot things and know when to walk away. And then when you have children, I mean, the complications there, it's too much. That's,
it really is.
and
Yeah.
financially, I mean, especially nowadays, I mean, women have to feel so trapped because it's not easy to just move anywhere. It's not
Mhm.
like you can just like pick a town and get on a Greyhound. No, it's not affordable anywhere, especially if you're single. Daycare is unaffordable for literally everyone.
Yeah.
So, like, what are you supposed to do? Murder
It's,
him. Just kidding, don't do it. I didn't say that.
yeah, it's,
I do plan to be a psychological professional someday, but I can't help but say these things because you got to add levity. And also it popped into my head. I don't put the thoughts in there, people.
no, they just come out. I hear you.
I'm just a conduit. Um, well, so I imagine your kids are doing great. What your older son, how's that relationship?
That one, we have a lot of healing to do because he saw a lot of things, and he was 15 at the time.
Oh, that's rough. Oh,
And
that's
yeah.
rough.
And then one time, Damon got in my face and was screaming so much that he was like spitting in my face. Again, over something trivial, like maybe I didn't respond to a text quick enough or something. So my son came up and he said, "Can you please get out of my mother's face and stop screaming at her?" And this guy like grabbed him by the throat and threw my son down to the ground, my minor son, and he's on top of him. So I had to jump on Damien's back and just like punch him like until he finally got off. So yes, I should have pressed charges. I should have moved away the next day, but I was extremely trapped. Everything was in his name, like my car, my cell phone, the house, my insurance, everything. So we still have a lot of healing to do because essentially I absolutely betrayed my son, um, by staying in the relationship.
It's like
So
escaping from prison. You have to like make a plan, have a map, have money hidden away, safe places, safe houses, a burner phone. Like it's like the great escape.
it really
It's
is.
it's no little business.
You need a well executed plan. You need to just take deep breaths. You need to get all your ducks in a row before you can finally make that move. And I wasn't in the position still to do any of that. And I feel
Right,
like
because
I
you're
was,
in the trauma. You're in the middle of the trauma.
and I was
It's
so mentally hijacked by this guy that I couldn't show up for my kids. I couldn't show up for myself. Like you said, I had zero self worth.
what else it reminds me of, and I'm sure this comes up all the time. And you're in the work of recovery. So, but it's very much like addiction, and especially like it takes several times. Like people fall off the wagon a bazillion times. I did 1,000 times before it sticks.
Absolutely. They become like our drug of choice. And we can't be without them because we go through the emotional withdrawal and we know it's not good for us, but we've got that trauma bond where we just need to be with them.
Well, and also if your life is like in utter chaos and you're always in anxiety and stress, you have to fill that with something else. And if you don't have those building blocks or things put in place, which when you're in the middle of the trauma, of course you do not,
Yeah.
how are you going to get there?
And he was the one that caused so much pain, but then he'd breadcrumb me with like little bit of affection, and so it took the pain away. So I'm like, he's the only one that can take the pain away, and it was just a mind
Yeah.
fuck.
Those breadcrumbs are so precious. It's like when if smokers will know this. When you cut down to two and then you cut down to one, or then you're just socially and you're like, "Oh, this is the best." It's
Yeah.
so precious. It's not good. There's nothing good about it. It's not the best,
Yeah.
but it's got this buildup and there is a chemical, positive response that happens. Otherwise, nobody would smoke. But it's
Mhm.
not worth it. It's not
No.
anything.
Yeah.
Oh, that chemical. Oh, those chemicals will betray us.
Yeah. Like you get your hit of dopamine
Going after
and
that fix. Oh yeah. So you need something to replace it. So of course it's terrifying to leave because it's like if I'm out of this chaos, then what's left?
Mhm.
Me and my sad self and my broken relationship with my son. Ooh, thank goodness you
Exactly.
wrote a book, right? How soon did
Absolutely.
that start? And how did you get I mean, I want to write a book. You did it.
Yeah. I studied creative writing in college with a degree in psychology. And so I just love writing. But this particular relationship, I just started journaling. I didn't intentionally set out to
Mhm.
write a book. I just started journaling and the words just kept flowing. Like I felt like I was a conduit, like
Mhm.
receiving messages, and I put them on paper. And then to read them, I was like, even just like writing them was very re-triggering. However, it was very healing for me and very empowering for me. So I kept going. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm going to make this a book. I'm going to turn it into a book and share my experience. And when I published it, I was like, oh shit, now it's really out there. Like I'm used to like writing in my living room, like all these words are mine. And then I just finally released them. And I'm glad I did. I really am glad I did.
I'm glad you did too.
Thanks.
So you see clients one-on-one, you're clinical.
Mhm.
Do you see a lot of this in I mean, this is what you do. This is what you focus on,
This is
right?
now my focus. I always dealt with trauma, like trauma informed care, but this is totally switched to this purpose because women need to feel, and I say women because I can relate to women. Obviously, there are women narcissists as well, but the clients I treat are women and they just need a safe place to just talk about it and be validated. That's the most important thing is being validated, knowing that what they're experiencing is actually happening to them. And sometimes they just need somebody to bear witness to what's
Yeah.
going on. And I offer them a lot of resources and a lot of mindful like examples of certain mindfulness, like going for a walk and just really taking in the moment, and or silly things like would help me when I would start ruminating about what was
Mhm.
happening. Just like sit somewhere and like count the tiles on the floor, or like just do anything to get your brain out of your own head, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
That works so well. I love the one if I'm out walking, if I catch it, it's hard to catch rumination, but when you catch it, spotting how many different shades of green, which if you're in a park is like ridiculous, or whatever. How many different colors can I see? But it really
Or,
does work because you immediately start focusing on something else. By the way, if anyone likes that idea, this is just popped in my head. There's an app called Seek, and I live here in LA, and I think I've identified every plant, flower, tree in my neighborhood. It's so fun. And you get little badges and stuff, so that's a fun
oh,
little
I'm gonna
thing to
check
take
them
on
out.
walks. You can identify bugs, lizards, birds. Have you watched Quiet on Set yet on HBO?
No.
I mean, I don't know what sort of things you like to watch. but of course I have to watch every disturbing thing that's
Oh, me
on.
too. Me too.
Okay. You're okay. So you'll see it, but it's about the Nickelodeon scandals. 3 pedophiles on staff for years and years and years and years and years and years and years.
That
And
is, yeah,
the one guy in his interview, he explains so well the moment of when he didn't tell the first time it happened. So he spent the night, and the grooming process is like years long, right? So it's years long. He's comfortable with this guy. He's spending the night at the house, whatever. He's actually not comfortable because the touching had started already, like his arm on the shoulder, rubbing the arm, all that bullshit. And he's a teenager. He's like 15. Um, the first night that he was raped, he was like, well, what was I supposed to do? Call my mom and be like, hey, this happened, and then sit there and wait for the ride in his house,
yeah, that's,
right? And there's every moment is like that.
yeah,
Every moment is so carefully, anyway, I mean, that's a whole other subject, but yeah, anyway, Hollywood's a cesspool was my point. I laugh because it's like every day, my Twitter feed is curated for certain things, and every day is just like an assault to my humanity. I don't know what it's
uh,
like for you. Um, well, so your book, by the way, as you were then retelling it, and I'm hearing you say, I usually listen to Audible. Is it going to be on Audible? Should get it on Audible.
yes, yes,
Okay.
definitely.
But hearing you talk about it, then I start, revisualizing, and then like, oh my gosh, this should be, a mini series, not, but it's another story that can be
Yeah.
told. And you had support to leave. So you had a friend that had known everything. Do you have
Mhm.
family that was supportive and around? What was your network like?
I absolutely did. In the beginning, nobody believed me,
Oh,
which sucked because he would do the smear campaign and they believed him because when they were around him, he was so charming, and nice, and funny, and honorable. And they finally started, I lost 30 pounds. Like I was like a zombie. So they finally started to notice. And when they started to believe me, they were absolutely like there for me and helped me. And God bless them. They were like my army of angels because I don't know how I could have done it without their support.
that's amazing. This just made me think because you were saying, you're a licensed social worker, and
Mhm.
you didn't really like, have a radar on the narcissistic abuse thing. It's really important for clinicians to have this, and especially people who work with children and in family law, judges, things like that. Because so I said that I know someone who has a narcissistic abuser as an ex. They have a child together. And the problem she's had is she'll go into meetings with like teachers or a social worker or whoever. I don't know the dynamics of that, but the officials that she has to speak to, and if he's gotten there first, he's charmed the pants off of all of them.
Man, yep, yep. And judges
So
too, and lawyers too. And yeah,
someone was talking about like get rid of calculus and let's get this into high school. I
yes.
think I was listening to the indoctrination podcast, and someone mentioned that, and she had said that she had talked to the people in schools about bringing the education in, and they said, "Oh, it's too negative."
No,
I'm
no, no,
sorry, children are getting trafficked because they're falling for love scammers online. A guy
yep,
who's like, "I'm 12 and I'm your boyfriend," and the girl goes to meet him, and it's a grown man who kidnaps her and sells her into sex slavery. Like we're beyond, oh, it's a little negative. I'm sorry, society is like jumped. We're we got to start attacking this stuff at a low, when people are younger, for sure.
absolutely. Absolutely. And I put that in my book too, how we need to teach the children like the ugliness of unfairy tales, like in a developmental appropriate way. But absolutely,
Oh
absolutely.
gosh, I don't want to talk about. I hypothetically knew someone once who, is very empathetic and wants to, have their children be empathetic and trying to be understanding and make sure to get both sides of the story and everything. And an older kid was grooming the daughter
Oh my God.
online, doing all these inappropriate things. And meanwhile, mom's like, oh, let me give the kid a chance. And she's taking him on the field trips with the kids or whatever. And then come to find out it's all this months of horrifying behavior on his behalf. And so
Oh,
the empathy is a thing that's like, it's great to have it because we don't want to be narcissists, but that's another thing that they will prey upon. So it's really important. Where there's smoke, there's fire sometimes, maybe do digging. And then also like there's no way unless you know the narcissistic, like people just need to be educated on that specifically, I think.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Because when we're too nice, then we're naive and we're too trusting. And there has to be that fine balance where, like, we don't shut off humanity because we think everybody's bad. And we can't be so trusting and think everybody's good.
Yeah.
So I'm a huge empath, and it's just against my nature to treat people that way. So I never thought people like that existed that could treat people like that.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. I got a really rude awakening when someone in my family passed away and someone else in my family who I'm close with. And I knew that there were issues there, but you overlook it because you love the person. And she's my childhood lifelong friend. Um,
Mhm.
but all of a sudden this behavior sprung out and was just so brazen. I saw texts that I wasn't supposed to see, and me and another person in the family showing comparing notes were like, holy fuck, this person's completely crazy. And that added other trauma to the death and everything, and it's still going on. But holy shit, what was revealed that this person was hiding. And I feel like all these years, I was the one that was being charmed. I was the one, and that's why I didn't see it, because her behavior with everyone else was a little bit different than with me. It was like I was going to be the one to vouch. So she didn't
Mm.
fuck with me, right?
Yeah,
Until then.
yeah.
Because I'm like, what are you talking about? I've lived with her. It's fine. She's never stolen from me. Like, yeah, she tells little weird stories, but they're harmless. No, not harmless.
Wow.
Holy moly. So people can't always be educated for no what are some like really good nuggets for people to look out for early on?
Well, first of all, I always say trust your intuition, always. So if you're in a situation and it doesn't feel right, trust that. If people's actions don't match their words, trust that.
That's a big one.
Yeah, absolutely. If people put you down, degrade you, make you feel unlovable, like, it is our birth given right to be happy and loved unconditionally. And if you're not receiving any of that, then it's time to move on. Like, you want to be with somebody who's your cheerleader and wants to see you succeed. And if they just put you down or don't take your needs seriously, it's just all of these things, all of these, so many red flags.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have anything else you want to share? What are you doing these days?
So I just started training like emergency responders, police stations. I've been doing trainings in, and I would love to get into the court system so that
I love this.
people, yeah, so that people are trained, like professionals are trained to recognize the signs and realize that a lot of this is manipulation, and they just need to be aware because so many women too, like Gabby Petito, were you familiar with
Mhm.
her case?
Oh gosh, yeah.
Like, how did they let that one slide? I don't understand it. And I've been giving talks at colleges, so I'm trying to get to that age, like the
I
younger the
love that. I love
Mhm.
that so much. I love that you're doing that. That's like my dream again, like getting it in there, especially college age kids, because they fall into all the things, the abusive relationships, the sex trafficking, and cults,
Yeah,
weird high control groups, all of
exactly.
them. That's the
Exactly.
time. Oh, I'm so glad to hear that you're in there. What did you
Yeah.
say to get in there? Because I know other people, I've talked to other like cult experts and been like, what's going on there? And they're like, well, some institutions think that it's offensive to people with religions. I'm like, well, then maybe look at your religion. If what I'm saying is offensive to your religion, maybe look at your religion.
Mm.
How'd you get in there?
So one of my former coworkers is a professor at a college. So he read my book and he was with me through my experience. He's like, you need to come in and start giving talks. So I've been doing that a bunch of times. And then another woman read my book and she works at another university. So she invited me to go talk there. And then during one of my talks, a woman who works with emergency responders was in the audience. And afterwards, she gave me her information. She's like, I need you to help me with these trainings. So,
Oh, this is amazing.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, I love that so much. I love that for you. That's great.
Thank you. Yes,
May
it's
may
very,
your words spread far and wide.
hopefully, hopefully, because I just want to help as many people not go through what I went through.
Yeah, it's a lot of it takes a lot of years away where people could be doing something else and feeling something else and moving forward in their life.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think that's my main, I relate to all of this stuff. We can't get into my why I relate right now, but I relate to this stuff and I see how easily it could happen. Did you read Influence, Cialdini? He at the very beginning he says, "I'm a patsy," and I'm like, "Yes,
Hmm.
that's me." Yeah. Well, thank you so much for the work that you do, and thank you so much for coming onto my show, my little budding show. I really, really appreciate it.
I so appreciate you having me on your show to tell my story. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to share all of your stuff in the show notes. Is there anything you want to plug now before we go?
Well, my book, thank you for sharing my book. And I can give you
Rising from the Ashes, my Faith C. Echo. Okay, sorry, go ahead. The website.
my website is www.faithcecho.com. And you can see my podcasts that I've been interviewed on. You can see a little bit about my bio and yeah, that's it.
So if you're in law enforcement, legal, schools, college, anything, please get in touch with Faith because guaranteed probably most of the people that you work with and surrounded by do not know. As we see in every documentary and every series that this is proliferating throughout society and government everywhere. And it's a huge problem. We all need to be educated on it. So, all right. Once again, thank you so much, Faith.
Thank you.
Until next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.